I am terrified of looking at my money, but I know I have to. Let's get into it. Today on Mindset Matters More, we are going to talk to Therese Nicklas, and she is someone who understands that money is never just about money. It's about freedom, confidence, choices, and the life you believe you're allowed to create. She's a certified financial planner, money mindset coach, and certified success coach who has spent the last 25 years helping women rewrite their relationship with wealth and possibility. What shaped her work so deeply was watching women she loved stay stuck in painful situations because they were afraid of the financial consequences of leaving. And instead of accepting that reality, she made it her mission to change it. Through her work at Wealth Coach for Women, Therese blends strategic financial planning with mindset and success coaching so women can stop shrinking their dreams to fit their doubts and start building lives that actually align with their values. This conversation is going to be empowering, practical, and deeply needed. Therese, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Andy. I've been looking forward to this conversation for weeks.
Oh, me too. Absolutely. So let's just dive right in.
Sure.
So we often think of we don't want to look at our money because of shame. Maybe we have bad spending habits, but sometimes there is fear behind looking at our financials because we've never looked at them or because of what the implications of it could mean moving forward. What would you say to somebody who maybe has never looked at their finances and might be feeling that fear?
I would say that you're not alone, first of all, especially if you're a female. And I don't want to sound sexist, but it's very true that there is a lot of conditioning, even at our generation and future generations that come after us, where women don't handle money. And in many cultures, women don't handle money. So this is something that goes very, very deep into our DNA. So if you're
Mhm.
somebody who does not like to look at your finances, you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. But if you know in the back of your mind, if this is bothering you and this is something that's keeping you up at 3 in the morning, because fear of the unknown is a very real fear. And we often in our heads, we create the lions and tigers and bears that are behind the black curtain. And if you look behind the black curtain, you find, oh, there's nothing there. There's no problem here. Or if there is a problem, maybe it's a puppy that's barking and you can fix it. So what I recommend is start small. Don't think you have to become a CPA or anything like that overnight. Take a look at one account. Maybe it's one credit card. Or maybe it's one checking account or one savings account. Start there. If you're a salaried employee and you get a pay stub every 2 weeks or whatever it is, that's a great place to start because that's something that you have a familiarity with even if you don't realize it. But very often, especially today, because we get those documents either by email or they're hosted on some website that we have to go to actually look at them, start there. Download your last 2 or 3 paychecks, pay stubs. Look at your gross salary. Look at what you actually, and I'm saying this because this is usually where they're located, is the gross is usually in the top left. Your net is in the bottom right. And look at the difference between those numbers and look at where your money goes. Like, where does it go to taxes, to employee benefits? Do you have any money set aside into a savings account, not everything going into your checking account? Look at breadcrumbs. Look at how that money flows. And that is a very non-threatening, easy place to start.
Absolutely. Just looking at it, not even having to analyze it, but just looking at it. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. Just taking that first step in being able to see what's going on, the bird's
Right.
eye view, not really saying, oh, this is what this means, or that's what that means, or I should do this, or I should do that, but really coming from a perspective of, let me just see. Because I love the analogy of lions and tigers and bears, and it's just a little puppy barking in the background. Because I have found that a lot of the things that we fear have been blown wildly out of proportion to what they
Exactly.
are. We've
Right.
constructed these stories around what's going to happen. We've constructed these stories about, what does it mean? What does it mean about me? And
Right.
love how you break it down just to its simplest component. Just look.
Yeah. No, that's our limiting beliefs. They live in the back. I like to point here. They live in the back of our brain, and they control the show. They're driving the bus, and we can rewrite that story so that it works to our favor instead of to our detriment.
Yeah. And in doing the work that you do, what do you think has been one of the driving factors of fear rather than shame or guilt? Like, what has been like a differentiating um, like aspect to people who come to you and say, I'm just like too afraid to even look at it versus somebody who's like, yeah, I've looked at it, but like, ew.
Well, usually they're one and the same. They just verbalize it differently.
Okay.
So the fear is what's blocking them from understanding,
Mm,
or the lack of understanding is creating the fear. So
mm.
generally they work hand in hand. They're just labeled differently.
Yes. And the emotions behind money run so deep,
Yeah.
fear and shame. They all come from, different places and manifest in different ways. But ultimately their goal is to prevent us from expanding and moving forward.
Well, it is. And what it is, it's the reptilian part of our brain. It's like that hunter-gatherer piece of our brain that still exists. And that piece of our brain thinks they're keeping us safe.
Yeah.
It's like, let's, get you out of the woods. Let's keep you safe. Don't go there because it might not be safe. It could be the best thing for you to go there, but this is what's happening. And those stories that you talk about, Andy, they are so, it's like if you've ever gone on to ancestry.com, there should be an ancestry.com for your money story. Really, because those stories have been passed down from generation to generation,
Yeah.
in particular from the 20th century to the 21st century. So my parents lived through the Great Depression. They both had entirely different experiences, even though they're the exact same age. So they had the same period of time, but they had different experiences. Both sets of grandparents also lived through the Great Depression. And again, they had completely different experiences and completely different outcomes. And the reason is their money stories. And I've been studying this for decades because it fascinates me when I look at in my own just one family, although I have a big family, just in one family alone, you look at all of these different components and you say, why is it that this set of grandparents over here died in poverty or what we call indigent? I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but that means like you die, you're out of luck. So when they were buried, they had to be buried in the pauper's cemetery
Mm.
because they had no money. The other set of grandparents, although they were never what we would call wealthy, they came here the same way, like zero money in your pocket kind of thing. All of them getting off the boat, coming from the same area, so very much on the same track. But the difference was the decisions they made and the attitude they had toward money.
Yeah. Yeah.
That my set of grandparents number two also passed that information on to their children. And my father growing up would say things to me like when I was growing up, and he'd talk about the depression. And he said, when we were kids, we didn't even know the depression was going on because Nani was my grandmother. We call her Nani. She was so good at handling money. She could squeeze a quarter till George Washington cried. And yet she was the most generous person. She always had something to help somebody else. There was like always somebody who was a rung on the ladder below, and she would try to lift them up. She had an abundance mentality. She just had this
Mm.
confidence that she could create more than enough, and she did. Now, was it, Warren Buffett level? Absolutely not. But for her, it was abundance because it was more than what she needed and she could help others. That was her, that was her litmus test. Someone
Ugh.
else might feel, oh, well, if I can't buy a Cadillac, then I'm not successful. Her bar was here. And as long as she could put food on the table, no wolves at the door, the home was heated, all of those things, and she had something left over to give to charity or to help a neighbor, she was successful. Where my other set of grandparents couldn't get out of their own way, never mind help anyone else. And they had that mentality that no matter how much you have, it's never going to be enough, so we might as well spend everything.
I really love the fact that you go back into your lineage to identify different ways in which we think. Now, there's this wonderful story, and I'm just going to digress here for a second, where, a husband and wife are in the kitchen and the wife is making a roast and she cuts a large chunk off the left and the right side and throws them out. And the husband's like, hey, why did you do that? And she's like, oh, well, my mom taught me how to make a roast. That's how you make a roast. And he's like, okay. And then they go to the mother's house and the mother's going to make a roast. And the husband witnesses that she does the same thing where she cuts a chunk off the left and the right and throws it away. And he's like, hey, why do you do that? She was like, that's how my mom always made a roast. That's how she taught me how to make a roast. And then they go to the grandmother's house and he's
Yeah,
like,
same
hey, I
thing.
want to
Yeah.
watch. He does the same thing. And he asks the grandmother, hey, why do you do that? And she's like, or she didn't cut it this time. And the husband was like, oh, well, aren't you supposed to cut the left and the right and throw it away? And she's like, I used to do that because I had a smaller pan. And so we've learned these behaviors through our parents, and we never thought to question why
Right.
is it that I treat money like this? Why is it that I have this behavior with money? What is it that I have this fear of spending, or this idea that having money is bad, or being wealthy is not for me? Like, why do I have these thoughts? And we never think to like look at our parents or our grandparents or even beyond that, for
Right.
that.
Or even just your neighborhood. It could, you don't know where it comes from, but the biggest problem, Andy, is that most people don't stop and ask that question
Yeah.
because it's subconscious and it's driving the bus and it's driving your behavior. So I can give you a really good example. I won't name any names because you never know who's listening. But a person that I know very well, one of their parents, and again, I'm not going to be specific, but one of their parents during the Depression, actually throughout their entire growing up, they grew up in extreme poverty. I mean, like going to bed hungry, house cold, extreme. And those stories were constantly reiterated throughout this person's childhood. Oh, well, when I was a kid, blah, blah, blah. So they inherited that meme even
Mm.
though they're very well off financially, have plenty of money. They inherited that meme, and that fear of running out of money is so deeply ingrained that no matter how much I advise them, they can't shake it. And they
Mm.
will come up with stories about, like the last questions about a retirement account, like, the rules about required minimum distributions, things of that nature. Oh, well, when this happens, I'm going to run out of money because I'm going to have to take so much money out of my retirement accounts. And I keep explaining The RMD rule has nothing to do with spending. It only has to do with withdrawal. You can withdraw that money and put it in the bank. You don't have to spend it. You can withdraw that money and put it in another investment account. You don't have to
Mm,
spend it. So just because you're shrinking your retirement account to follow the government's rules does not mean you're shrinking your net worth. You're just moving it.
mm.
There's a big
Yeah.
difference. And explaining, and I can't tell you how many times I've explained that. I cannot even count how many times I've explained, but this is their meme. This is their mentality, and they're terrified about taking money out of their accounts.
Wow. So I'm curious, at the beginning of the episode, I talked about your own journey and you witnessing painful situations
Mhm.
yourself. The driving factor that I have seen many coaches on this podcast has always been because of something they've lived and experienced. What sort of energy are you bringing to conversations having had those painful experiences? Like, what is your hope for the people who you coach?
I love that question, Andy. Thank you so much for asking that. My goal in working with women, the reason that I specialize in working with women is because I saw so many women throughout my childhood and even later, even women that I've worked with that were in really bad situations. I mean, bad. And they were so terrified of leaving that situation because they had no understanding of how it was going to affect them financially. So they stayed. It's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And there's one person in my life when I was a little girl who had the courage to leave. And it devastated her. I mean, she was already not in great shape financially, so she didn't have a whole lot of room. But looking back now as a grown woman, as an adult, and not even like as a little kid, not understanding what divorce meant or any of that stuff, she had to be the bravest person I've ever met because she didn't have, like the basics. She didn't even have a high school education, but she was very smart and she just figured it out somehow. She managed to figure things out. But seeing that and seeing how people responded to her, people around her, how they responded, that like enhanced her fear. And it enhanced the fear of a lot of other people because, like, see, I knew this was going to happen. So, my goal when I work with people is to lay out for them what their options are so that they have a very clear understanding on what's on the other side. And in having that understanding, they know what they're facing and it gives them the courage to move forward. And I want them to have confidence in themselves by having the clarity of where they stand financially and emotionally to make a change. So whether the change is leaving a job or most of the women today that I'm working with seem to be at that crossroads where they're considering leaving, maybe retiring, maybe going into something that's more meaningful and less stressful. But their big hang up is how is this going to affect me financially? Because when you think about transition, you think about change. It's not just like the dollars and cents. There's a lot of other stuff that goes along with it. And that's what I help them navigate so that they have a very clear picture of when they make this change, what can they comfortably afford to do? If they need to continue working, how much do they actually have to earn to maintain the lifestyle? And then along with all of the emotional side of the money, the practical side, that's where the CFP side of me comes in, where I can explain to them how withdrawals from retirement accounts affect you, what your pension will do for you, what is Social Security, when do you start taking your benefits. They have a very clear picture from a financial perspective because we've built in that, like, what does my life look like and how do I give it meaning and purpose? And what does all of that cost? They get the full picture so they can move forward with confidence.
And there are so many different crossroads where that can happen.
Hmm.
And so I'm glad that you like mentioned different ways in which that can manifest in your life. And I also love that you blend the practical with the mindset behind it, because oftentimes, you can get a CFP, a certified financial planner, and they say, here's the facts. And knowledge, yes, it's power, but it's not going to push you to do anything until you've got the right mindset, until you work on those stories, until you work on the limiting beliefs and the things that are blocking you from manifesting your like true desired life. It's okay, I have this information. Now what? And then
Exactly.
you blend those two, I feel like becomes such a more potent way in order to look at your life and what you want, especially when you reach those crossroads of new job, retirement, moving, downsizing, upsize, or whatever the case may be. But being able to not only see the picture, but really value what your true desires are.
Exactly. And that's why I morphed my practice into a coaching model. When I first started as a CFP, and even before I received the CFP, when I was doing financial planning, the industry at the time, this is, going way back, and financial planning was really started by insurance companies, and it was to show people that they needed insurance. So you'd run them through this plan. It'd be like 100 pages long, charts, graphs, you name it. And the outcome was always you need life insurance or you need disability insurance. And there's nothing wrong with those things. However, you have this great tool that can help people look at their whole life and you're not using it right. So I took this tool and said, how can I maximize it? How do I put gas on the fire? And
Mm.
what I came up with was to take each piece and coach people through to get everything implemented, whatever it is that they need to do. So, for example, if you were someone who came to me and said, geez, I've never had a financial plan, and we, do the whole bit, we run the charts, graphs, the numbers, but really what you want to know is, I've always had in mind to start a foundation. I would like to have a foundation that's going to um, provide housing that's affordable to young families. How do I do that? Do I have enough money for that? Now, that's something that's a really deep, powerful goal.
Mhm.
It's huge. But most other advisors are not going to deal with that. They're not going to dig that deep down to really draw out of you what is in your soul. What's going to give you a sense of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. And that seems to be the biggest block when people are they're at that crossroad of either changing jobs or considering retirement, even if it's semi-retirement, is how do I invent myself as this new person who's not the CEO, who's not the administrator, they're not the whatever. Now I'm just, you know, Jane Doe, the unemployed person, or the formerly employed person, formerly known as kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do I give that part of my life purpose and meaning? And when they can see it laid out and included with their financial side, what they can afford to do, how much time can they spend volunteering, could they start a foundation, and what would that look like? It's like the world opens up for them. And now instead of dreading this new chapter, they're looking forward to it. They're excited about it. They're probably more enthusiastic about that than going to work. And now they
Mm.
feel like this is why I worked for the last 30 years. This is why I worked for the last 40 years. I'm at that stage of life. I can create my next chapter and make it meaningful and fulfilling. And I deserve that.
Key statement. I deserve that. And getting people there is so beautiful. Stepping into the realm of possibility, that's like step one, but then stepping into the realm of I can do it, and then stepping into the realm of I deserve it. It's magic to watch. And I'm curious as to when you have had a client, maybe someone that started out feeling like it was a difficult case, but you witnessed their transformation, what what was that feeling that you sensed that you gave them?
Well, I can tell you how it feels for me. For me, I feel like it's why God put me on earth. When I can see them go from fear, confusion, dread, that, lions and tigers and bears are behind the black curtain feeling, to, oh my God, I can do that? Really? I can do that? And just to see them light up, it's like I look at somebody and their age has reversed 20 years. I can give you a short story. I'll condense it for you of my very favorite client, my very favorite story. This woman came to me during COVID, beginning of COVID. She was in her mid-60s, had worked her whole entire adult life, never married, had no children, but was the caregiver for her two elderly parents. Now, her father had died shortly before COVID. Her mother died shortly after, so she lost both parents within a short window. And now it's like, okay, I don't have that to do. It's kind of like, what do I do next? It's my turn. And she was concerned that she would lose her job because a lot of her colleagues had gotten laid off. So she had this going on in her head. So, question that she came to me with, if I lose my job and I'm not working, am I okay financially? I have no idea. I put money into my retirement account. I don't know what any of this stuff means. And then the second question, if I do stop working, what am I going to do with myself? I've never had free time. So we had two big, powerful things going on here. So the first thing we did was we looked at the finances. I walked her through. She had a pension, she had savings, blah, 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 all the stuff. I walked her through what all of that meant, what withdrawals would look like. I said, you have more than enough money. You could retire tomorrow. You are very well positioned. No debt. And she said, okay, we checked that box. What do I do with myself if I were to retire? Or if I lost my job and I'm forced into retirement? I said, so then that's where the coaching side comes in. That's where we draw out, what are the things that you, in the back of your mind, said, I would love to do these things if I had the time. Like how many times we say, oh, if I had the time, I would do X. What is your X? And she, thought, and we talked back and forth, came out with, I have a lot of extended family that I love, cousins, nieces and nephews, things of that nature that are all over the country. I've never had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with them. I'd like to
Mm.
travel. Okay. And she said, but I'd also like to be set up so they could come and visit me. My house was my mother's house. It still looks like early old lady. I would like to redecorate and freshen it up. So we came up with a budget for that. She gave me a list of the things that she wanted to do. We had a travel budget. Then she wanted to volunteer. So she said, I love children. I like reading to children. I said, well, if you have a library in town, I'm sure they would, or schools, they would love to have you as a volunteer. How much time a week would you like to do that? 1 or 2 days. Okay, we'll put that on the list. So as we kept going, now she's mapping out her week. Now, instead of the week being 9 to 5 at the job, she can see where she can plug in and be purposeful, be meaningful. She also liked elderly people. She said, I could read to the blind. I mean, it was like the list went on of the things she could do. And I said, you could go 1 or 2 hours every single day if you wanted to. I'm sure you could find locations Monday through Friday if it interested you. And she just lit up like a Christmas tree. So to see that glow, that enthusiasm, that, wow, I get to do this, instead of thinking about what you have to do, now getting them to think about what they get to do
Mm.
and what they have the capacity to do and what they deserve to do is so rewarding for me. And I don't want to sound selfish, but it really is very rewarding. I mean, I just love it when I get somebody from point A to point B and I'm the bridge between it and just
Yeah.
hold their hand and walk them over the bridge. It's so exciting.
What a beautiful story. Because what I witness in the story and what I feel that it comes from you is the excitement of possibility. It's the excitement of, what in this world can I create? I can create relationships. I can create a new home. I can create, it's all about creating. And,
Right.
retirement doesn't mean that you just stop. Moving new locations doesn't mean you're going to stay in your home and never create friends and a new community. Like, it's all about expanding the mind to recognize that we get to create our life. We get to create from a place of abundance. Like, what does that look like? Or how can I
Exactly.
get there so that I can have exactly what I dream of and live that life?
And actually have the dreams, not suppress them.
Oh,
Bring them
yes.
forward. Because I think a lot of time we think again, the lions and tigers and bears behind the black curtain, right? We make a decision, our itty bitty committee that lives back there that's lying to us. We believe that these things aren't possible because we haven't done them yet. Like the story about the person making the roast. They're throwing away half their dinner because they don't know what's possible. And what's possible is just get a bigger pan,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And oh, what a wonderful callback to end on, because I think, as we're moving forward, and coaching becomes an integral part of society, in my opinion. It's really about taking ownership and responsibility for our thoughts, actions, and behaviors, and recognizing that we can be more, we can do more, we can have more. And coming from that place, people like you are really creating innovators for the future, really creating dreamers that can be and have and do all this wonderful stuff and live a fulfilling life. And so what a beautiful way in which you coach. Let's see, how can people connect with you if they feel called? Like, what are you working on? What are some projects? Let the audience know, how can we get in touch with Therese?
Thank you. Well, best place is my website, which is wealthcoachforwomen.com, and that's FOR, and it's women plural, WOMEN. And you can always email me. You can sign up for my blog and, stay in touch that way. I have a series of workshops that I'm going to be running throughout the next few months, and it's all about the things that we talked about. Really, how do you create that possibility, that meaning, that joy, that fulfillment in your next chapter? How do you prepare for that? How do you get yourself ready if you're not ready right now? So that I'm going to be doing a series of workshops on those topics. And I would love to have your audience join me for that. I'm doing in person and online. So if you happen to be in the greater Boston area, you can certainly come to one of my in-person events. If you're not, then you can sign up for one of my online events. And I do have a gift that I sent you the link for the gift, and
Yep.
that is for your listeners. And I hope that you download that gift and enjoy it. I believe you'll find it very helpful, and certainly feel free to reach out. And in that gift, there's also a way to contact me if you have more questions and would like to set up a time to have a conversation. I do offer a 30-minute free conversation. I call it your breakthrough hour or your breakthrough 30 minutes, and you can certainly sign up for that. And I'm more than happy to meet with you and see how I can support you.
Mhm. Say more about what the gift is.
So, Andy, I created a gift just for your audience, and it's called Five Simple Steps to Your Next Chapter. Go from what if to what's next with confidence so you stop shrinking your dreams to fit your doubts.
Oh, I
And
love it. And in
and
there,
in
I'm
this,
sure
you're
that
going to see
there,
five different ways, like the things that you just really giving you a good foundation. What kind of things do you need? We'll talk about your runway calculator, like what is your baseline for finances? What are the buffers that you need to put into place? what is your transition income, what are some speed bumps you might run into, and what is the long-term things that you need to be thinking about. So it's a way to really dive into your finances without being terrifying, have a clue as to how that's going to affect you going forward. And I hope you learned something. I hope you find it helpful. That was the intention of it.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for that generous gift. I'm sure that the audience is going to love it. Therese, thank you so much for sharing your time, space, and energy on my podcast today. Everything that we talked about today, I'm 100% sure that, people are going to get some benefit, maybe reframe the way that they think of things. So thank you so much for sharing your experience and your wisdom today. And everybody, who's watching, if you want to get in contact with Therese, I'm going to have all the links in the description for the video. We're going to have your free gift there. Please like and subscribe. And if you know anybody who could use this information, please share it with them, because this is how we can get people to level up their life. All right. Thank you so much one more time, Therese. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you guys. Bye.